The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, folks. Thank you very much indeed for coming to this webinar in order to learn how to get better involved in funding and then implementing the Inspiration Strategic Research Agenda. My name is Paul Nathaniel. I've been working in the core group of Inspiration, and the webinar will be delivered by the Inspiration Coordinator, Stefan Bartke. Just before I hand over to Stefan, you will be sent a link to a recording of this webinar, and I will pass on your email addresses to BRGM to email you a copy of the slides that you'll be seeing. If you have any questions, then there is a box in the GoToWebinar interface for you to type in your questions, and there'll be time at the end of Stefan's presentation to take any questions. So without any further delay, Stefan, the floor is yours.
Thanks a lot, Paul, and good afternoon to all of you. So my name is Stefan Bartke from the German Environment Agency, Umweltbundesamt, and I welcome you to this webinar about the means to get involved in funding and implementing the Inspiration Strategic Research Agenda. There has been a second webinar which you can access on our website, which gives you, in a nutshell, more information about the content of our strategic research agenda. The objective of this webinar is to give you a brief introduction on how you can become a partner in funding or in implementing topics of the research agenda that are for you as a potential funder or grant provider. And the key components of that are to provide innovation, and towards providing innovation, the components are to provide you, first of all, with the information on what all this is about, and second, to enable you to take action. And if there is only one thing that you remember from that webinar, then it should be the website that you see on the bottom of that page, www.inspiration-agenda.eu. Let me use just half a minute to settle the general picture. Inspiration is short for Integrated Spatial Planning, Land Use and Action, which received funding from the European Commission under Horizon 2020, a project that is terminating now in February 2018, but continues in its ambition to facilitate now the implementation of our research agenda. A research agenda that focuses on soil, land use, and spatial planning, as they are fundamental to all Europeans. Soil and land research themselves need coordination across regions, disciplines, stakeholder groups to properly address the knowledge needs that we have in the bottom-up process understood to be around in Europe. Inspiration provided a stakeholder demand-driven strategic agenda that collates the research needs out there in Europe. Our vision is now to support the implementation of this Inspiration Strategic Research Agenda, to provide information to funders and facilitate a matchmaking of likewise interested partners. And we would like to support potential funder platforms on their way to implementing parts of the activities. There are three main channels or options through which you can become active and learn more about Inspiration and its background. The first one is focusing on the coordination and support action Inspiration. It is the website Inspiration-H 2020. The second one is detailing the Inspiration Strategic Research Agenda. It provides all the information with regard to the background related under the agenda, and also, which is crucially for today, a database that collates funding interests from across Europe. And finally, and in parallel and in addition to all of that, we are providing you national contact persons in at least 17 different European countries, and also a contact point for all countries outside that core group of original inspiration partners or for the European level. Let me go into each three of that pillars. First, to the Inspiration Age 2020 website. At this website, you can get all the background, detailed information about the inspiration, coordination, and support action. We lay down why research in land, but also broader soil and spatial planning activities is so urgent and needed to address stakeholders' demands in Europe. We are furthermore reporting the activities from the 17 different countries that participated in the Inspiration project towards collating the research demands and present, of course, the outcomes of that endeavor. Let me take you best directly to that website. On that website, you find in the top navigation bar the different pillars that I just have introduced. So you can go here to find about participated in there about our great international advisory board that during the elaboration of the project supported us. You find information on the conceptual model which was behind the collation of national research needs into a strategic research agenda. And you find detailed information about how that was done and established in the different countries that participated in Inspiration, for example, in Poland. For each of that countries, you find the national contact persons who was targeted with that work, and you also find a national language summary of the approach of Inspiration and the key outcomes relevant for that country. So if you're interested in a specific country, you can have further detailed looks here. Moreover, you find the general outcomes and information about Inspiration, the deliverables, but also at the policy level, and the collection of the different newsletters that have been elaborated project, in as much as information on crucial collaborators whom we have been in touch with during our project's elaboration. The Inspiration-Age 2020 website is the medium to learn about the coordination and support action. But this activity has closed by February 2018. That means not that the information will be forgotten, but that we are now starting into a new activity, which is on a voluntary self-funded basis by the Inspiration partners. Inspiration partners in all 17 countries continue in their support to introduce the agenda to potential funders and to support them in matchmaking activities. And our key instrument to provide information, to leverage the contacts and also the potential implementation actions is all collated on the website inspiration-agenda.eu. So let me also give you a brief idea on that website. If you go to that website, you will first land on this site, which will give you and all the others a general introduction on what in general Inspiration is about. You find some thematic context, information about the bottom-up process, and as something that is at the moment developed, you will find in an additional button in the future information on the ongoing or just implemented activities towards making specific topics of the research agenda happen, finding collaborative project funding for projects. But the most instrumental use of that website, which I would like to introduce to you, can be found by following this link to the web database of the research agenda. Under this one, you can access the different research topics that have been identified in the research agenda. Remember, in total, there have been 39 different research topics in Inspiration, so maybe far too much to put them into a nutshell now. They have been coming up from the research demands that have been posed to us by more than 500 experts in Europe. So behind each of the topics is a long story and a long contribution of experts, and you can use this medium to understand on the one hand what the topics are. For example, the first topic on integrated environmental assessment and soil monitoring in Europe. You can go there and see different information about those topics, on why they are relevant for funders to prioritize them on their research agendas, for end users on why they should think research should be taken in that area, on what the prospects are also in a scientific motivation to do research, and for citizens to understand why it is needed to invest here. So you find different in-depth information on the goal of such an activity, on what might be a potential risk if not going into such an activity. The activities are classified in if they to the general type of research approach they are belonging to, and also classified in regard to which sustainable development goal they are contributing to. And what you can further see is that you can find the information on which national research demands taken from the national workshops and interviews have been collated into this overall activity. So you can see, for example, that the topic of soil quality has been mentioned in the Netherlands, and you could use the bottom to visit that website to understand more what the Dutch exactly wanted to learn about. And find in the way around then a list of topics into where these specific demand went into. And you can do that for all the more than 200 national topics that have been identified and behind the more than 1,000 research questions. And as you may have seen just on the site before, it is not only a presentation of specific interest into this topic to provide funding to it. So if you click to the OVAM, you can see the information on the contact partner and also a specific interest that this funder has into implementing the research agenda. When providing the information, and you can do that by tell us your interest here, you are brought to an input slide where you just give details of your institution and where you can say if you are if that public website or should be kept confidential to an internal website. For the internal website, access is only available for the national contacts, about which I will just talk in a minute. So you can express confidential information via that platform, but also share your view with other partners. And when going here, you then have the opportunity to say for each of the 39 funding topics, what precisely your interest is, and if you provide funding for that, possibly have done or whatever is here the correct information point for you. This is the key functionality of the Inspiration web database, and if you have more information about that, there is a specific way on how you can address that. There are persons who will be ready for you by email or phone to provide you further information about how you can express your interest into a funding topic via this platform, but also you can, of course, just directly talk to that person and ask her or him to support you in collating your interests into collaborating with other partners. These persons, your national contacts, they will support you also in regularly checking updates of the database and informing you then, if you are getting into contact with them, informing you on upcoming research intentions from other European countries. And in return, they will inform others about your intention if you give them the mandate to do so. That will help us to identify potential matches and facilitate the next steps into a matchmaking. It will also help us to monitor the initiated coalitions and cooperation. What are the gains from such a networking activity? Well, we assume that there will be quite obvious a benefit from the larger total budgets that can be achieved in the transnational research infrastructure. You can achieve wider ideas and views through multidisciplinary research approaches as they are core in the bottom-up inspiration research agenda. The aim is to complement each other's country's expertise through the collaboration that is enabled here. It can ensure involvement of highly competent and skilled researchers and committed stakeholders from across Europe. That could help to produce more implementable research results, also with regard, for example, to guidelines, recommendations, decision tools, using the different capabilities of the individual funders' experience and expertise. Exchange the experiences between the different funders in the network via the national contacts on specific topics and get in contact. Get in contact with one of these funders that you can also find on the website Inspiration-Agenda for You. Let me just say a few words in the last minute about how a potential collaboration should look like or could look like. It is actually up to your own desires. As Inspiration, we like to introduce funders with a co-interest into a certain topic. So collaboration can allow you to influence the choice for cause and proposals, and then to co-fund proposals that are covering your priority topics, while you are refraining from others. Funding should therefore be only for the research teams that you specify as a funder. Let me make clear, therefore, that Inspiration does not target you to come up with a very complex or administratively demanding procedure, but our intention is to provide you with very easy means on how you can implement parts of the agenda. And as part of that, just as one element, Inspiration will be supporting an initiative to set up a new research funders platform to support implementation of the research agenda. There will be a workshop in late spring of funders to discuss details of that potential collaboration. And if you're interested to join that workshop, please talk to your national contact, as they will then be instrumental for you to become part of that workshop and get the contact to the already established network of 5 funders from 3 different countries that have already committed to support that activity. But also for all the other questions, these people will be instrumental for you to get in touch. My time is up. I'd like to thank you for your attention. I'd like to thank the European Commission for the co-funding provided to the Inspiration Coordination and Support Action, the stakeholders from across Europe that helped us support the research demands, the Inspiration partners for their great work, and again, you for joining us today. Please get in touch with us. We are looking forward to hearing you. And for now, we are looking forward for your questions. If you have any, please post them to the chat box. Paul, maybe I can ask you to provide the further facilitation of the Q&A.
Thanks very much indeed, Stefan. Folks, this is your chance to type in any questions. While you're thinking about that, a reminder that you'll get an email with a link to a recording of the webinar, and I will pass on your email addresses to our colleagues in BRGM who've been leading on the dissemination of Inspiration to email you a set of the slides that Stefan's been using and the link to the website that he's been talking you through. There are no questions yet, so Stefan, it looks like you were very clear and everybody's just excited and wants to log on to the database and register their interest. I'm just going to give it another few seconds. So I'm going to count down from 3. If there are no questions, I'll wish you a good weekend. So from 3, 2, 1. So we have a question. Just bear with me a second. For some reason, there we go. That's better. Is land restricted to land, or does it include water too? Stefan, you can answer.
Yeah, it does not include oceans, but it does include quite any other form of water. So in inspiration, we have been very ambitious when going to and let me go for that example back to the overview of the topics. We have been very keen on looking not only at a where or very close definition of land, but looking at the soil, sediment, water system. And you can see that in different areas, like for example, in the demand section, there's a specific topic on water in as much as there is on the national capital section, which is to express, yes, we are more than aware that on the one hand, natural capital, so the ability of nature to provide us with services and goods is restricted and needs better attention, and also understanding on the interlinkages on the one hand, but also that societal demand needs to be satisfied to a certain degree, and we need a better understanding on how things are evolved there. But if you're interested in more details, again, I suggest to go to the inspiration-agenda.eu website, where you can just go to the browsing section or going to the intro section, where you have a search function and where you can also select from the different overarching themes if there's one. But if you're particularly interested in water, you might just go for a full text search, enter the term water there. And I'm sorry that obviously my computer in the first step didn't want that, but in the second one it goes. And all the topics where water in particular is included are coming up. And you see that these are actually going from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Number 8 is the first one where water is not actually considered. And you find somewhere the soil, sediment, water resource system is actually part of the main headline of the key topics and divisions of that. So you can easily see and find what is in the agenda by using, for example, the search function of the web database.
Stefan, can you do that same exercise for natural capital, please?
So I'm going up, going back to the search function, and we are going here for takes a small second as my keyboard obviously lacks connection to the system. What you can do and might have seen that natural capital is part of the demand theme. It is expressly mentioned in one of the 4 main thematic topics. So you can also go to this area to find out more about the key topics related to understanding the natural capital. But also with help of the search functions, you can see in which of the other topics natural capital plays a key role.
Excellent, thank you.
Are there any other questions?
There's one question saying, are we interested in an interdisciplinary cooperation? And I'm just replying in by typing to say that yes, most of the research needs that we've identified would require interdisciplinary teams to tackle them.
Indeed, and I would just like to add, as you have also done in the previous webinar about the content of the SRA, it is part of how inspiration was developed as a bottom-up strategic research agenda that we find expressions of research needs that are spanning very fundamental research questions and deserve knowledge creation, up to a hands-on implementation request of knowledge that is needed. So a demonstration part, but also a networking supporting part. And you can also distinguish or look the agenda by just clicking or searching the database accordingly to that preferences.
Stefan, thank you very much indeed. I'd like to thank everybody for their time this afternoon and wish you a very good weekend. Look out for the email with the link to the recording of the webinar and also for an email with a copy of the slides. Thank you very much.